do it like, let's be realistic.
Right.
Understand? If someone's late, they'll probably do it a little bit over, but in case this conference is what you're instructed to enforce,
Right.
we're not coming. So I have to show them that. And now, what had me excited is when the policy enforcer interested in what's actually going on. So I left it at that. If you're interested, man, here's my number. Call me. I get my business.
Network.
So another
Another
favorable reply.
I'm gonna show y'all the next time. I'll send a picture of Zeke. Like he was overwhelmed by it. So he went home. He painted a picture. Zeke is a tremendous artist. No, yeah. Like some of the stuff you'll see in Manhattan, this kid can paint. I'm sorry, this more can paint. He painted. He brought it in. He's like, yo, this for you. He brought it to the house and put it on. It looks amazing. Send me a picture of it. Yeah, he's sick.
All right, so another favorable reply, which is what we need, and then also with the whole I smell marijuana. Right. When you read the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, Article 1, it will say those who were brought voluntarily to the New World are considered indigenous people. So black people think that they were brought over here, so that applies to them. Then, when you read United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, Article 24 says indigenous people have the right to preserve and maintain all medicinal plants, minerals, animals, etc. So since so-called blacks are indigenous, they have the right to maintain their plants. So I smell marijuana, whatever that is not an excuse. If they smell cannabis, then that's fine too. And you don't need no state or whatever license, which is permission, because it says you have the right to maintain all medicinal plants. Right? And then a right which is free and open to all is not subject to a license or a tax, because the word license means permission. So since you have the right to open up your refrigerator, you don't need permission from Jamal to open up your refrigerator. So if you read Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, Article 24, read the whole entire thing, but if that's specific, that will help you for that. Because they encroach our people for plants.
Yeah, that article, don't lie, it speaks, it literally says more in it. And it like discusses, is that, am I saying this right? Is that the Treaty of Peace and Friendship?
No, this was the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship does say more in it. All right, so now we're gonna get into the actual subject matter, which is who are the rightful heirs apparent to America? So we were talking earlier off camera about claiming land, allodial title, and stuff like that. And as I was studying, I found in the Recorder of Deeds that you can look up anyone's first and last name and look up the estate information. So it'll have the mortgage contract there, it'll have any quitclaim deeds, any warranty deeds, whatever. So if you see an abandoned property, you can do research on it, see who's claiming ownership of it. And then when you're doing that, keep in mind, corporations, like banks, can't own things. You know what I'm saying? It's the people administrating that bank who are claiming ownership. That's what it really is. So, I want to go into that. I forgot my HDMI for my projector. I'm just going to read off my computer, and then we'll just build from there. So it says, who are the rightful heirs apparent to America? Then I have an image of American in that book right here, this book right here. So I'm going to have one you read. The American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster's 1828. Are you still rolling on this camera?
Yeah.
Right, so who wants to read it? American. What does it say?
The title of the book?
No, the definition of American.
Oh, okay. Get in there. Sorry, I don't know why Okay, you gotta have that. American, noun.
Which means it's a person, place, or thing, right?
Person, place, or thing. A native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. That's what Columbus meant in his letter when he said, take note that everyone, they are of Aboriginals, but not everyone. He said everyone is Aboriginal and indigenous, but those who are Aboriginal are not necessarily indigenous, and those who are indigenous are not necessarily Aboriginal. This is Columbus writing back to the vote. So it would probably say that. So when you get into the history, we knew about the Slavs. Like the Irish are one of the first to adopt Turtle Island. When Columbus came, he meant in the Caribs. So we already had it. Like
we've been here.
Bringing them over here and been amalgamating. So that might be why they talk about it now.
They're claiming to be American.
Now they're claiming that.
That's the birthright.
Because of the amalgamation.
Yeah. But if they're amalgamated, then they're American. If they're not, then they're not.
So the ones who are not amalgamated are just running with.
They're just Europeans.
Yeah.
So remember, I've done this before. In our ancient languages, we didn't really use vowels.
Right.
When we do this right here, and you get rid of the vowels.
American.
And then you look at American and Moroccan, and you get rid of the vowels, it's the same thing. And then when you look up hieroglyphs, that's how you spell more. Now have an owl and I think a pyramid. That's more. Right? Not only that, but since vowels are interchangeable, this shows you that it's the same word. Oh, excuse me. M-E. And then again, this means water in Egypt, or Egyptian. And then this means water in Cherokee. And then more, or Moabite, or Moab, M-O means water, Ad means from, so from the water, from the womb. And then when you look up an ancient African parable, it says from the ancient waters of Nun, N-U-N is M-O-M, so from the ancient waters of Mom came Atum, or Adam, who named all things. And then when you read the front of or the beginning of the Circle 7, it says man is the Lord of the plane of protoplasm, beast, things made manifest, plant, etc. So it's the same thing. So we're from the water. And then again, when you look at your own history, you'll see that you are known as a seafaring people. And then you look at the Marines and the Seventh Fleet. They have 7 belt loops, 7 seas, and they control the seas right now. Because they're in charge of our military power. So, that little bit of information, right? So now knowing who or what the definition of American is, and see how it relates to Moroccan, and then when you look up the definition of blackamoor, I'm not sure if it's in that dictionary, but it's in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. They'll say blackamoor is any dark-skinned person. So if Moroccan and American are the same, and Moor is a shortened version of Moroccan, then Moor means any dark-skinned person. So are these Europeans Americans? They're not. So what the Europeans have done is they trained us to think that we're from somewhere else so that they can claim the title American and so that they can escheat our lands. Which means since the name of the land is Morocco, and the Moroccans don't know that they're Moroccans, they're not claiming the land. So it's considered abandoned. Does that make sense? So if someone will look up escheat in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Anyone? You?
I do.
Which one? Escheat. I'm just going to write down a list of words that we need to know.
Escheat. In feudal law, escheat is an obstruction of the course of descent and consequently determination of the tenure by some unforeseen
Contingency.
in which case the land the casual descent in the nature of forfeiture
So
of
it's forfeiture of
lands and tenements within his manor to a lord either on failure of issue of the tenant dying, seized, or on account of the felony of such tenant.
So either you're forfeiting your land, or you committed a felony and your land is being taken. What else does it say?
Also the land or fee itself, which thus fell back to the Lord, such lands were called
Oh, it's Latin. I have no idea. It's a Latin word. I'm not fluent in Latin.
What is it? Can I say it?
Yeah. English.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't want to bring the book over and bring it back.
Excandentis.
That's,
Excandentia.
I can't remember the name of this.
Excandentia. Okay.
So since we can't read Latin, unfortunately.
Excandentia.
This is why we need Zeke, because Zeke knows like 3 languages, I think.
In American law, escheat signifies a reversion of property to the state in consequence of a want of an individual competent to inherit.
You hear that?
Hiding?
Hiding?
Might be, I'm not sure.
Can you read that again? It said in American law, what does it mean?
Escheat signifies a reversion of property to the state in consequence of a want.
Now, what does want mean?
Lack.
So lack. Of a what?
Of any individual competent to inherit.
So escheating means the right to the land goes back to the state, which they're claiming to be the state. They're claiming to be we the people when they're foreigners. For a want or a lack of a person competent enough to inherit it. So since Morocco belongs to the Moroccans, and the Moroccans now think that they're someone else, they're clearly incompetent, right? That's why they call us minors and minority. Because we've done this before, but when you look up minority and minor in Black's Law Dictionary, it'll tell you infants or a person with the mentality of a minor, of a child. And then we look up wards of the state or wards of the court, it'll say infants and persons of unsound mind. And then when you get this book right here, Native Americans of California and Nevada by Jack Forbes, it'll tell you that when the Indians were granted United States citizenship, they were still considered wards. Because a ward is an infant and person of unsound mind. How are you claiming to be Native American and Indian when India is in Asia? Clearly you're incompetent. Right? That's why when you go into Black's Law Dictionary 5th edition, they'll tell you Indian title is not ownership of property. So clearly you're incompetent. That's why the Europeans are still administrating our land. Because we literally don't know who we are. Then when you read the definition of nationality, can you read the definition of nationality, please? Because this is part of escheating in conversion. All right, so we're going to do nationality, and then we're going to do conversion. So remember, escheating is the lack of someone competent enough to inherit land. Right? So competent means you can manage the land. And then inheritability means bloodline, right? So what does nationality mean?
The quality or character which arises from the fact of the person belonging to a nation or state.
So it's that quality or character. Say that again?
The quality or character which arises from the fact of a person belonging to a nation or state.
So when you think of Japanese person, you think of the way they dress, how they conduct themselves, what food they eat, their history, some of their laws maybe, if you know. That's nationality. What else does it read?
Nationality determines the political status of the individual, especially with reference to allegiance, while domicile determines his civil status. Nationality arises either by birth or by naturalization.
Now let me stop you right there. Did you see the contradiction in that while reading? Now, I'll show you this. We did this earlier. I'll do that again. So remember when I said if you go to the no, close. When I said if you go to the Barnhart Dictionary on Etymology and look up the definition of nation, it'll say people of common descent. I'm acting like I can't literally just walk over it. Right? So this is where you get common unity. And descent is law. Because when a man gets a woman pregnant, that's law. That's why black people don't have immunity. And then it'll say nationality also determines who you have allegiance to. You get what I'm saying? So then when you look up the what it means in Latin, or how it's spelled in Latin, it means to be born, or to beget, to procreate. Right? So, if a nation of people is a group of people of common descent, do we share the same common descent with Chinese people? Now, anciently, of course, we do. But currently, the way the human planet, or the way the planet is divided, is people are identified by their nationality. You know what I'm saying? So, if a Chinese man is saying he's Chinese, clearly he's not claiming to be more, so it's diversity. You know what I'm saying? So yes, we do share a common descent with Chinese people because we're all human. But as far as nationality is concerned, do we share the common descent with a Chinese person? No, we don't. You see what I'm saying? So do we share common descent with, although we know Europeans were created from us, do we share a common descent with Europeans? No, we don't. That's diversity. So read that again. It says nationality arises from what?
Arises from the fact of a person belonging to a nation or state.
Mm-hmm. And then what else does it say?
Nationality determines the political status of the individual, especially with reference to allegiance, while domicile determines his civil status. Nationality arises either by birth or by naturalization.
That's the contradiction. If the word itself literally means to be born or to procreate, it cannot also be, which means bloodline, right? It can't also be granted through naturalization. When you look up naturalization, it's clothing a foreigner with citizenship as if he were native. So these Europeans are not American. You know what I'm saying? And then back to the Indian thing. If you claim to be Native American Indian, and India is in Asia, clearly you don't know geography. Clearly you're incompetent. Right? Other Native Americans will just say, I'm Brazilian. Why?
Because they know where they at.
Because Brazil's in America, right? So an Asian person wouldn't say, I'm Asian. They would say, I'm Chinese. And then you know what China is, it's in Asia. So clearly you're incompetent if you don't identify yourself by your bloodline. Because everyone else does. That's also another reason why Indians are considered wards of the state, just like blacks. Because if you fail to identify a person, and then that name does not connect you to a land, you're wrong. You're denationalizing that person, and you're removing them of their rights. Because nationality determines your political status, right? So go to political. Since nationality determines your political status, and it is your bloodline, we have to know what political means, and we have to know what status means. No, Black's Law Dictionary. Hold on, let me zoom in. My camera's doing a split screen thing, see that? Let me zoom in. Let me try to turn this around. Just so they can see. You find it?
Political. Pertaining or relating to the policy or the administration of government, state or national.
What else?
Pertaining to or incidental to the exercise of the functions vested in those charged with the conduct of government, relating to the management of affairs of the state as political theories of or pertaining to exercise of rights
You heard
and
that?
privileges.
Exercising your rights, right? Pertaining to the exercise of rights and of managing your own affairs of state, right? Don't black people always talk about we need rights and all that crap? Well, your nationality determines your political status, and political dealing with your rights. So what happened? You declared your nationality. Oh, now what does status mean? So since nationality determines your political status, right? Your nationality is your bloodline, rights from birth. That's quality of character, how you conduct yourself, who you are, etc. And political is dealing with rights. Okay. Now we have to figure out what status is, right? Or we just read something and we have no idea what it means.
Status, standing, state, or condition. The legal relation of individual to the rest of the community. The rights, duties, capacities, incapacities which determine a person to a given class.
Now it said incapacity, didn't it?
Yes.
So your status also determines what you can't do and what you can do.
Right.
So if I'm in China, I can't do certain things, so that's not my land. Since I'm in Morocco, I can do certain things because it is my land. Can you continue, please?
A legal, personal relationship, not temporary in its nature nor terminable at the mere will of the parties with which third persons and the state are concerned.
So since your nationality determines your status, you can't lose your nationality because it just said it can't be removed. That's where just post limity comes in, where we're restored to the status as if we never lost it because you can't lose it. The last time I checked, you still got blood running through your veins. What you lost was consciousness of it. That's why Drew Ali came, to remind us of it. Because we've been catching hell because we forgot.
What's the word just was?
Just, J-U-S. Let's go. Just, P-O-S-T-L-I-N-A. N-I-N-I-I. Yep. P-O-S-T-L-I-M-I-N-I-I. Just post limine. That is the right to be. So if you're the king, right? And you're gone for a while, whatever, and then people start forgetting you're the king, then you come back, you're still a king, right?
Yeah.
So you go back to your throne.
Yes.
That's just post limine. So since we've been Moors, and we're in Morocco, then guess what, Europeans? Go ahead and leave. The job done. That's why we're getting so much fight. Not really fighting back. They're trying to maintain that view that
It's just an illusion.
yeah. It's the color of law, it's the appearance, color of office, color of authority. So, can you continue with status, please?
It also means the state because it signifies the condition or circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property. In the yearbook, it was used in this sense.
So, your status also means your estate. That's where the Christian black codes of 1724 come into play, where it says, blacks shall never own property, whether on their own industry, liberality of others, if someone gives it to you, it shall be the full property of their masters. This is where mortgages come into play. This is where deeds of trust come into play. This is where Indian title comes into play. This is where you not knowing who you are comes into play. This is where cheating comes into play. Now look up conversion, please. So that's, again, Christian Black Codes of 1724, Article 22 will say blacks can never own anything, because black's not a nationality. And since nationality determines your political status, your rights, to your estate, your land, that's why we don't own crap. Continue, please. Huh? Christian Black Codes of 1724. It's also in my book if you have it. Conversion.
Conversion, equity. the exchange of property from real to personal or from personal to real, which takes place under some circumstances in the consideration of the law such as to give effect to directions in a will or settlement or to stipulations in a contract, although no such changes has actually taken place.
Did you hear that? It said no such change or transfer actually took place. This is where the Europeans will say, well, we got the deed from the Indians to be here. And if you look up the definition of a deed means something was done. A loyal title is the only way to own anything. So did the Europeans own anything?
No.
No. Because a deed is not ownership. You get what I'm saying? That's conversion. It's the appearance that a transfer took place. You can't sell or transfer hereditaments to anyone else. If this is my dry erase marker and my heirs are to inherit it, they have right to it. It goes to them. It can't be sold to someone else because that's right of blood. You tracking? It's called just sanguine. That's right of blood. So if my heirs are to inherit this, since they are part of my bloodline, only they can get this. As long as they're competent enough to inherit it and administrate it. As long as they claim their nationality. And recognize that they're part of my bloodline. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't recognize you're part of my bloodline, then you're not heir to this. So if Morocco belongs to the Moors, if you don't recognize that bloodline, you're not heir to this. Meaning it's abandoned. So if you go to any of these projects, you say, where the Moors at? Even though you see all these brown-skinned people, they're like, what are you talking about? Because we're trained to think that we're something else. So that all of this works. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm trying to give you these definitions and show you how they're working. So conversion is this. As an example. It's non-tangible, you know what I'm saying? Because remember, the universe is mental, you can't touch your mind. It's in here. You know what I mean? And even when you touch your brain, you're not touching your mind. So conversion is this. Conversion is teaching the people of this land that, oh no, they don't even say it's not Narragansett, they just say, oh, it's Providence. Even though on the seal, it will say founded 1636 by Roger Williams. And it'll say incorporated 1832. Now, did the land exist prior to this?
Yeah.
So clearly it's not the name of the land. Did the land exist prior to this? So clearly it's not the name of the land. So can you claim land in this? Why? Because it's not land. You get what I'm saying? That's conversion. Same thing when they change our knowledge that the name of the country is Morocco to the United States. That's conversion. Because no transfer took place. They cannot produce one document where the Moors gave any Europeans a loyal title to any estate here. That make sense?
Yeah.
And remember, when you're dealing with the three prohibitions at law: status, jurisdiction, venue, and adjudication. When you're dealing with jurisdiction, you're dealing with territorial jurisdiction. That's why when the Europeans pull you over, they say, where are you from? And then you give them a corporation, which makes you what? Their property. Or they say, are you a resident of Providence?
That's why I told him I was traveling through Narragansett.
Yeah.
I called it Rhode Island. That's what I told him. He looked at me.
Because you can't travel through this, just like you can't walk into Walmart. You can walk into a building that has the name Walmart on it, but you can't walk in Walmart. That's why they call us residents. Res means a thing, indent means identified. So are you a thing identified in this corporation? But they don't say it like that. They say, are you a resident of Providence? Since we don't know, what do we say?
Yes.
Which means you agreed, didn't you? And then what? Ignorance of the law is no excuse, huh? Because we are God, made manifest. Right? And the Bible says the kingdom of heaven's in you. So if the kingdom's in you, God sits on the throne, what does that mean? God's in you. And then in 101s, Dorley asked, where's the closest place to find Allah? And it says in your heart. So if Allah's in your heart, what does that mean? You're Allah. And then in the Quran, it also says the will of the people is the will of Allah. It says it right in the Quran. You don't believe it, you can read it. Go ahead and read it. Go ahead and get yourself a copy. Go ahead. You can get this on rvbankpublications.com if you didn't know. Now you do know. So, that, in a sense, is conversion. Any questions so far? Is your silence consent? Is that what it is? Questions? No questions? Do we get this? Please tell me.
So, I get it, but I have a question.
What?
Say, oh, can we take a break?
You want to take a break?
Wow.
All right, skin 30, so I'll give you
Skin
30.
You want 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? I shall be back at 1. Yeah.
Do you want to, are you?
Yeah, oh yeah. We'll be back 10 minutes. Be back at 1.